I'll
All right,
record.
let me
All
sit up
right.
straight right now, though. Let me sit up
Yeah,
straight.
yeah, yeah.
Hello there. No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
Let me put the
good.
filter. Hold on.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
gotcha.
All right. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time sort of with one foot in the artist side, one foot on the presenter side of things. And I think, if you're in this class, you're gonna end up on one of those sides of the aisle and probably on both, at some point in your career and some point in what you're doing. Um, and like the first thing I can just say about, whether you're presenting a proposal to a venue is to really try to understand both sides of that proposal, right? So understand the value that you want to bring to that venue, and then also understand, obviously, for yourself, the value that you're going to get out of that gig. And I think trying to weigh both of those as you start to navigate that process is really important from the artist side. But again, from the venue side, I'm thinking the same thing most of the time, right? I'm thinking, what do I need as a venue? But also, what good can we provide this artist? Whether it's compensation, all those kind of things that are really important. So, I guess always know that you want to book the venue, and that venue wants to book you as well. Like, trust me, like last year in 2023, I booked 179 events between the three venues that I managed. The sooner I can get those bookings done and taken care of and wrapped up, the better. My life is easier, right? So you never feel like you're trying to sell somebody something that they don't want. They want to book you as long as the circumstances are right, right? As long as we sort of think that deal through on both sides and know that you have something to offer. So don't ever feel like you're asking for a favor for somebody to book you or whatever. You're bringing something to the table, and don't forget that part of it's really, really important. Um, as you as you go about a proposal, there's a couple of different things. I can tell you some things that for me are kind of turnoffs, and then some things that I think are really helpful. I get a lot of unsolicited emails like every day from agents and artists directly wanting to book. Some of those are okay. Like, I don't mind someone sending me that email or that sort of their reel or what they do. Um, the problem is sometimes if I have no connection to that person at all, if there's no introduction, if it's literally just here's a YouTube link and that's it, but there's no context, I can tell they didn't look up our venue, they don't know what we do, they don't know the types of acts we normally have. I can tell it's probably not a great relationship to start because we don't know each other. And there's no point to it, right? So as you start to like identify venues that you want to work at, I think like it's really important to put a little bit of time. It's just like doing a job application. Make sure your cover letter is good, right? Like, make sure there's something in there that they recognize. Oh, this person actually looked at our venue. They saw that last month we had Dr. Ruiz, when we had Darius, and we had these folks here, and they're presenting something that fits in with the context of what we normally do, right? They know how many people we seat, all those kind of things. All that information's out on the web somewhere. You can find all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to kind of, as you do that introduction. Now, better than that, better than an unsolicited email is obviously you have some sort of connection into that venue. So maybe an artist that played there recently or an artist that's playing there coming up, and trying to figure out how did they get that gig, who did they know there, and then what's the best way to communicate with those people, because everybody's different. Some people in the business, they like phone calls, some people like emails, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of knowing as much as you can about that stuff's really important. When I get a proposal from somebody, and it's different, right? A lot of times what I get is someone saying, hey, here's what we do. Here's the value we provide. Here's our act. Here's some of our past history. And some of us, we might be on the front end of our career and not have a lot of that history, and that's okay. But here's our ticket sales in the past. Here's how we're doing coming up. We're going to be coming through Florida, so we're looking for a routed date, meaning we're already flying to Tampa. So we're looking for stuff that's within 150, 200 miles of Tampa, within a day or two, that kind of stuff. They won't usually, in a proposal from an artist, it won't usually include like, here's how much we cost and all kind of those things. A lot of times that'll come from the venue itself. But if you have that information in mind, and especially if you have a relationship with that person, bring that information up front. It's easy, right? So I think that stuff's important. And as you're looking at presenting, so say you make that initial contact, whether you had some sort of connection, or you just sent an unsolicited email and the person responded and said, hey, I really like your act. What are you guys doing in April? Are you free April 13th or April 14th or whatever? I think, or what kind of deal. Oftentimes, I'll ask or an artist, what kind of deal are you looking for? Do you want a guarantee? Do you want a versus deal? And these are all things I'm sure you've gone over or will go over in different ways. But a guarantee is where I pay an artist just a flat fee. So they say, hey, we're $12,500 plus 4 room nights or whatever, or plus $1,000 buyout for travel. You'll see that sometimes. Or they might say, we have a lower guarantee, it's only 4,000, but versus 70% of ticket sales, meaning, and I kind of like these deals as a presenter, because one, I know that the artist, if they don't sell a single ticket, if we really mess up and we don't sell a single ticket, they're at least getting their smaller guarantee. They're getting that $4,000. And that's all I'll be out is $4,000. And they've got enough to cover their travel. They're all cool, right? The versus deal, I like that as part of that, because it means if we sell well, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, there's a lot of ways the artist can bring value to that by saying, hey, we've got a ton of social followers, or we're going to present this to our mailing list or our fan club or whatever. Then both the venue and the artist will do well, right? So as ticket sales, let's say it was a 50% versus deal, and ticket sales went to $10,000, then the artist is now getting they're getting half of that, 5,000, instead of the lower guarantee of 4,000 or whatever. So there's other ways you can do. Like I deal with a lot of comedy too, and a lot of comedians and comedian groups will do just pure ticket splits. They'll just say, hey, no guarantee, we just want 60% of the door, something like that. And as you get with smaller venues, the 3 venues I've managed recently seat 700, 200, and 300, depending on. But if you go to like a more of a club type venue, door splits are more popular. You'll see that sometimes. And then one thing I'm running into a lot now with especially really established kind of regional artists. So not like a national touring artist, but like a more regional artist. For instance, there's a band called Steel and Peaches that I've been working with the last couple of years. They're pretty well known. They sound great. They do like an Allman Brothers, I don't like to say tribute, but it's kind of like an Allman Brothers leaning sort of jam band kind of thing. It's pretty cool. But they've got such a great following that they're just renting the venues now. So they're four-walling the venue, which means they're literally just renting the 4 walls of my building and saying, we'll do all the marketing. We'll you put up the ticket link, but we'll send everybody there. And the cool thing with that is the venue, I've got a guaranteed income because they're basically renting the venue for whatever our normal rental fee is or whatever. But then if it's really successful, the artist does really well because they get all the ticket revenue, right? So it's kind of it's a little bit more of a risk for the artist, but a lot more of a reward for the artist too. So those are the types. So as you think about the deals and you want to go into a venue, think about what type of those compensation areas, work best for you. Whether it's the guarantee, a versus deal, just a ticket split, or just renting the venue. That's never, especially with a smaller venue, it's totally cool to ask, hey, how much is it just to rent for the evening? Make sure you get all the ancillary costs too, because it might be, oh, it's only $1,000 to rent, but you've got to hire our stage crew, which is $800 an evening. You've got to use our tech crew, which is this much. So there's a lot that can be there sometimes. As you go into that, making that proposal and realize that, something I think about a lot. And when I'm talking to, so the Riley Art Center where I've managed most recently is a nonprofit, which means we report to a board of directors. And as I talk to our board, they'll kind of look through like our events for last month. We'll say, here's how we did. Here's the 36 events we had last month, and here's how they did or whatever. There's different reasons we may want those acts in our venue other than pure dollars, right? So there are some acts that we just make a lot of money on. Like for instance, like presenting like a Led Zeppelin tribute. Like you can sell a ton of beer, you make a lot. People come to it because they're looking for that kind of, depending on the demographic you're serving. But is that artistically like raising the bar in Ocala or for my patrons? Probably not. I mean, some of those tribute bands are really good, but I don't think anyone's going to be just like incredibly moved, that night and then go do some positive thing or something. But there are other things we do that maybe the dollars are closer to a break even, or we're not quite making as much, that do really add to sort of the artistic vision of that venue. So whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit venue, no matter who you're dealing with, they've got some sort of vision of what they want to do, right? Like, especially like a nonprofit's definitely going to have sort of a mission statement or some sort of mission they want to address. So knowing that stuff is really important. Even for-profit venues, like I think of like Heartwood Soundstage and some of the other places in Gainesville they're really doing some great work. They've got a vision. Dave has a vision for what he wants that to be, the types of acts that he wants there and stuff like that. So I think that's really important to kind of know that about the venue you're doing. I've had cases where we've booked acts that I really didn't think were going to do real well, but I had a board member or a special donor that was like, oh, I'd really, really love to have this person or that person. So, you never know what that reason's going to be, but kind of thinking about that is important. Another thing that I find really attractive from artists is when they're kind of flexible in the type of act that they can present. For instance, like we've had like some pretty cool national artists before, like Kenny G, Max Weinberg. We just had Bela Fleck about 8 months ago. And like with Bela's team, Bela was like, okay, I can come by myself. I can come with my friend Abigail. I can come with, or Aoife. I can come with the Flecktones. I can come with this. I can come with that, depending on what he's doing at that time. So that flexibility is really cool for our venue, because there might be like a really great artist like Pat Metheny. I think he's going to be in Gainesville in a couple of months, maybe like March, April. He's coming to the Riley a year from now, next March. And, Pat with an entire ensemble would have been too much for our venue. You only seat 700 seats. That probably would have been in like the $45,000, $50,000 range, which meant the average ticket price, we had to sell out, and the average ticket would have had to be like $125, $130. It doesn't really work out really well. But Pat's coming with a solo deal, which is great. So that brings the price down a little bit, gives the venue some flexibility. And also, like, some audiences love that. They love the idea, I'm just going to see Pat Metheny by himself and not with a whole band or whatever. So there's all kind of stuff in that sort of flexibility as an artist that, like, I know on my side, on the presenting side of that, we really like to see. I guess the other thing I'll say, and then I'm talking a lot, and I want to get some feedback and answer some questions about
it's
stuff.
Gold. You're offering a lot of gold, and I'm putting notes here, and hopefully students will type in their questions as well.
Cool. The other thing, and I know, Dr. Ruiz is big on this. But like, what value adds can you bring as an artist, right? So, I already mentioned like sort of the social media reach and the marketing aspect. We've booked shows before, and Steel and Peaches was actually a great example of that, where I didn't think that would do so great. We've had Allman Brother tribute bands before that did okay, but Steel said, no, trust me, we've got a whole mechanism. We're going to help market this, and we've sold out every show we've done with them over the last 3 years because of that value add they had from the marketing side and their social media reach. We've had artists that'll do, meet and greets for us. That's awesome. And I promise, we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome, and we might think, well, no one wants to meet me. Like, who cares? They want to meet you. Like, people want to meet you. Like the people that come to your shows, the idea of like shaking your hand and talking to you, even for just a second, is really cool, right? So that meet and greet stuff is really important. Donor receptions, things like that. We've done a lot with different artists. Like Kenny G has done some like school visit stuff for us and educational things, which is really cool. A lot of artists can do that stuff, and frankly, a lot of artists like enjoy that. It's kind of a little bit different than what they're doing day to day. They get to talk to a different group of people. It's pretty exciting. So any of those value adds, that kind of helps the venue go, yeah, this is, we're taking a chance with someone new. We may not know them really well, but I think it'll do good based on our market, based on where the ticket price is going to be, based on where the deal is. And also, they're going to do this donor thing. They're going to meet with our education program. They're going to do this. All that stuff really does kind of help tip the scale, I guess, in your favor. I'm trying to think of more about the proposal side of things. I think that's kind of it. At least the things that I think about when I'm getting a proposal or engaging with an artist for the first time. The other thing, I'll just say about that, and then we'll get some questions. But with that proposal, on both sides of the deal, like I said, think through both sides, but don't neglect yourself as you're doing that. Sometimes when we say consider both sides, we tend to neglect ourselves, right? Like as the artist or whatever. But remember in the proposal, like, what are you offering? How much do you want to do it for? When are you doing it? Where are you doing it? Why are you it. All of those kind of questioning words, I think to have that in clarity is really important. And think through all the things. Like if you think, man, getting paid $1,000 for this gig or getting paid $3,000 for this gig, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to say yes no matter what. Well, wait a minute. Did you consider you got to fly there? You got to rent a base when you get there because you can't take it on the plane. You've got to find a drummer local to that community and all those things are coming out of your pocket, right? So just make sure from the artist side that you think through a lot of that stuff. I can tell you, several times over the last 8 years of booking the Riley, I'll work with a great group. I mean, a really fantastic group. And then I notice as we get closer and closer to the gig, I start getting these emails. Like the first one will be like, oh, hey, I know we said we only need one night of hotels, 4 rooms for one night, but I just realized we're going to be flying in on Thursday because of the way the flights work. And can we make that 2 nights? Can we, and of course the venue, I tend to be like a little too nice. Yeah, no problem. It's selling well. We're going to be fine. Okay. And then we get a little closer. Oh gosh, I didn't realize we couldn't bring my whole drum set on the economy seat of the plane. So is there any way, you can rent the drum set for us, locally? So all those things, they start to add up. So make sure, I think as an artist that we kind of have that stuff together, I think before you engage, in that negotiation process, because most venues, as long as the information's up front, as long as everything's on the table, they'll do the things you want, and again, as long as you're zooming out and looking at the big picture, they're happy to do that stuff. But I think once that agreement's signed, once the deal's kind of done, it's harder and harder, and it starts to erode a little bit of trust, right? We talked a lot about trust with Dr. Ruiz yesterday in my class here in Massachusetts. Trust is really, really important. And I know we'll get to some, how do we get repeat performances and stuff in a second, but I can tell you being genuine, being trustworthy, being just a good person is really important part of the whole picture. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful stuff. These are just some of the notes. I know you added a lot, but some of the ones that I could keep up with. And I know Darius is also taking notes as well. He's not on social media.
I think he's on Twitter. I saw him on X.
No,
Yeah,
he's got all these bullet points, and the way he writes notes is actually pretty
I
impressive.
think he's playing Fortnite somehow.
Yeah.
I saw him over here.
Yeah. So no, and actually we just got some content with the Heartwood Studio with Dave that we'll be releasing as well. Yeah, really cool, everything that you mentioned. So we talked about guarantee. Just to recap, everybody, guarantee plus percentage of tickets. There's also the versus deal. There's the ticket splits. There's the renting the venue, taking account for ancillary costs like personnel, tech. Consider what you charge, that it should correlate with ticket pricing, because venues are willing to pay you the amount if they can get that return of investment, right? The ROI. The concept of value creation, which we've talked about, considering in your proposal how this could provide value with the venue intrinsically as well as extrinsically, and then to add, consider adding a marketing and social media facet to what you do that could help support and build that confidence that the concert will generate attendees. Maybe add a meet and greet feature. So the idea that people actually want to connect with artists, which we understand this. I mean, people want to meet, but sometimes we don't take that into account. And
we want to meet artists, but we don't think anyone wants to meet us. You know what I mean? But they do. They want to meet you.
Exactly. So write the vision and account for everything before you engage in the process, because you don't want to erode trust. So a lot of this stuff is super powerful. Let's see. So let's maybe also, for the sake of time, we can do blitz questions, and I think that'll work real smooth. So Alyssa writes, what do you do when someone does break trust and then they expect to keep being treated the same way, or do they expect being treated the same way? Yeah,
no, I understand that for sure. And this is with all people, not just artists and venues, but this is a great question, Alyssa. For us, I'm trying to think, Do you know Madeline Perot? You know, she was in our venue relatively recently. A great artist, great singer songwriter, really cool sound, a lot of piano and vocals. But and she was fantastic, and band was fantastic. But the working with her agent, a really nice person, but a lot of little things kept coming up, kind of the stuff I was just talking about. For instance, and a lot of deals and other things you can negotiate, by the way, you know, to add to some of those things that Jose mentioned, a lot of times venues will offer, like say you're flying in, they'll pick you up, so transpo from the airport to the venue or to the hotel, or they'll offer a buyout, right? So they'll offer like an $800 buyout. So for us, like as a venue, we've got some great relationships with some local hotels. So it's easier for us if an artist wants to like stay over. It's easier for us to say, hey, we'll book your rooms for you. We'll get you great rooms at a 4 or 5 star hotel, and you'll be very happy. So that's usually what we put in a lot of our offers. Now, some people up front will say, hey, we'd prefer to get a $1,000 buyout or a $1,500 buyout, which is totally fine. But in this case, with this particular agent, and it's happened not just with Madeline Pro, but a couple of the other groups that we booked this agent, we had offered, okay, we'll do up to 5 room nights at a hotel, and then in the budget for that, we'd put like $800 because that's about what that would cost, or $750 or whatever it was at the time. Well, then in several of those cases, when the artist got there, they say, oh yeah, we're not going to use your hotel. We'll just take a buyout for the amount that you're going to pay the hotel. Man, it feels so slimy to us as a venue when that happens, because it's like, wait a minute, you know, and then also when we know they're not staying there that evening, because we know they've got a gig in Tampa tomorrow, so they're going to drive to Tampa and blah, or whatever. Like that's stuff like that are the little things that start to erode your trust working with a particular agent or artist. The best way that I've found, and this takes time, it's so intuitive, but it took time for me to develop, was just to be really honest with the people you're working with that something's making you uncomfortable, right? So if someone breaks your trust, find a really pleasant, polite way, but firm, to say, hey, I'm going to do this time, but I want you to know this bothers me, or this sort of felt a little, this felt different than what we expected, right? Our expectations that we all agreed upon weren't met. So let's keep an eye on this. So it's a group project, not just you and the person you feel that's violating your trust, but it's for both of you. Let's make sure we look at this for next time. Now, Alyssa, if that happens again, then honestly, that's just someone you don't want to work with anymore. And that's the nature of this business. And it's something that you should know as artists and presenters, that oftentimes, you know, people, they do show us kind of who they are. There's always misunderstandings. It's happened on my side of deals before, where we've calculated an amount wrong. But if that happens again and again, or you just feel like there's not a lot of like equal sharing of that trust, then I think you just move on. There's a lot of venues out there, and there's a lot of artists out there, and it's really okay to break up with a venue or artist that you didn't enjoy working with. At the end of everything, I hope that every artist we work with thinks of us as, yeah, it's a business relationship, but also as sort of it's not an adversarial relationship. And unfortunately, you'll taste that a lot in this business, where people have been burned too many times. They didn't set up those boundaries. They didn't do all the things we've sort of talked about, and thinking everything through from the beginning, you know, so it's in a contract or in an offer letter. And instead they build up these really thick walls and just become difficult to work with. So again, if someone violates your trust, give them an opportunity to fix it. Watch it next time. If it happens again, then you've got a decision to make. I'm gonna end that relationship, and that goes for people too, by the way, not just artists and venues.
Yeah. No, this is great information, and I think it's important to understand that one could violate trust, even unintentionally.
100%.
And also, you know, something that I added here, just to piggyback off, is learn the ethical framework, business ethics, right? The ethical framework of the venue and the personnel, to see if you can align yours with their ethics, and then stick to the plan. So
Yep.
it's actually really good to, you know, as you are discussing this opportunity, it's not like you have one phone call and then it's an automatic, okay, yes, let's do it. No, sometimes it's 2 phone calls or three back and forths before you say, okay, cool, this is the proposal. Does this look good? But when you're having these meetings, you know, when they say all right, this all sounds great, any questions for us, it actually, I think, sets a good precedent if you actually say, hey, what are some challenges that you've encountered so that I can avoid these challenges? You know, what
Yeah.
are some of your
Yeah.
ethics? What would potentially cause you know, some type of disruption, because I want to avoid that and I want to have full transparency. That's actually good. I think it would be really valued. I put there, we'll call you. It means that they won't call you again. All right. So just so you know. All
Most of the
right.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For sure.
And all right, cool. So we have a bunch of other questions. So Glenda del Monte Escalante. So Glenda, you want to ask your question? Yeah, you probably need a
Yes.
unmute there.
Hello.
Like
I lost it in the chat.
I
No, I
found it.
was okay.
So,
I was
yeah.
asking if it makes a difference to the presenters from the presenter's perspective if the contact or the reach out is initiated by the artist instead of a manager or booking.
Yeah, you know, I honestly think it can go either way. There's pros and cons to both of those. Obviously, as we become larger and larger artists, we might have representation, so they're going to do a lot of that contact stuff.
Mm.
You know, I tend to not, you know, when I'm looking like through those like first contacts or the sort of unsolicited emails or whatever we get, you know, I don't kind of go like, oh, that's directly from an artist, I'm not going to read it, or you know, here's an agent, so I'm going to read that more. I don't think about it too much like that. I think the key is if you have a representative or representation that's making the deals for you as an artist, make sure you've got really good communication between yourself and your agent or representative, because a lot of times, you know, and not a majority of times, but many times we've had, you know, an artist comes and we don't talk to the artist really until the day of, you know, when they show up to the venue, and they won't even usually talk to me. They'll talk to like our stage manager or whoever's in the hall that day during the load in. So they'll say, oh, I thought you guys were going to provide caviar when I got here, or whatever, you know, whatever, or whatever they do.
Mm.
That doesn't really happen too much, but I thought you were going to pay, you know, you're going to have $400 cash for our meal buyout. And that might be different than the deal that was worked out with the agent or representative. You know, so sometimes I think making sure that artists and their agencies are on the same page. But as far as the presenter goes, I don't think there's much of a difference. I mean, I really don't, other than, you know, I've worked with a couple of people, I won't name any names, where their agent was just a jerk, man. And like, and it stunk because I really love the artist. I really love the artist. And there's a comedian I'm thinking of who I really enjoyed working with, really funny, almost a childhood hero of mine. We had him a couple of times, and it just got so difficult working with his agent that we stopped having the guy, you know, and that can happen. If you are going to have an agency representation, which sometimes is a necessity, I mean, trust me, if you're booking, you know, 100 dates a year, or even 30 or 40 dates a year, having someone help with that is really, really important, you know, and more organized usually than we can be as artists and presenters. But make sure you're on the same page, and those same ethical things that we talked about with venues and artists, make sure you share that with your agency or representative. But to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I love working directly with artists because I feel like we're always talking the same language and there's not this sort of third party involved, but it doesn't really affect the deal or whether we do something or not.
And it
Okay.
also,
Thank you.
in your case, it's special because you happen to be a musician. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have, you know, you're a musician, you're a conductor. That's your academic and professional training. So it's actually really good to see, and maybe even research if you can find the bio of, you know, the artistic director, whether they have a music background or not, you know, because that can also influence, you know,
Sure. And
communications.
Makes sense.
Jose, you just mentioned something too that I think is important. You know, if you're going to contact a venue, if you're going to like kind of unsolicited, make sure you know who is the booker, right? Who's the booking agent? Who's the booker for that venue? Who's the talent buyer for that venue? A lot of times it won't necessarily like, and at the Riley, as we were growing, I was with CEO and artistic director. That's pretty rare. Usually the CEO is kind of on the business side, and the artistic director or the booking representative might be somebody different. So making sure you know that information. And we'll have people call our front desk all the time. Hey, who's your talent buyer? So it's okay to do that. They don't even know who you are when you call. That's okay. You know, or who can I contact about talent buying? So anyways, I just wanted to say that really quick.
Cool.
See,
Yeah.
Hannah has a
Yeah,
question.
Hannah has a question, then Raquel, then
Okay,
Darius.
cool.
Mhm.
Cool. Is there a certain standard you have to be at as an artist when booking a venue? And I don't like to say that's a tough question, not because it's hard to answer, just because like there's some gray area there. You know, I think every venue is different. I think the standard as an artist that you would want to have before you want to be booked is that you have a product that you're confident in, that's professional, and that you have some value to offer, you know, and that's going to be different a little bit at every level of your career and every level where you're at. But I don't know that there's like a magic moment, like now I'm venue bookable. You know, I think that that's probably a lot of gray area. I would just make sure, especially the earlier you are in that process and in your career, that you have really great relationships with the people that you book with, meaning that you do what you say you're going to do. You're as an artist, you're trustworthy. You bring a product that's polished and ready to go and presentable to a public audience. You are genuine and authentic in what you present. And, you know, a lot of times if there's folks that are here that are going to go into academia at all, and Jose can attest to this, you know, I always think that when I go on like a campus visit for a job, a potential job, I remind myself, like, the moment I walk out my front door until the moment I get back home at the end of that gig or that job interview, I'm on the clock. Like, I'm potentially being interviewed. So from talking to my Uber driver, to the lady at the American Airlines desk, to the person who opens the door at the venue, the person who brings your food, like, just know that, like, through that whole process, you want to be respectable and kind to the people that you work with. There, again, like I said before, there's people that we stopped working with, and I know a lot of my colleagues in the business, we talk about this a lot at presenting conferences. They could be great artists, but if they're rude to our staff or not fun to work with, yeah, we'll pass. We're cool. We'll wait till, you know, we'll find somebody else, you know. So that, and I'll say this, there have been artists that maybe ticket sales weren't great and didn't do great. I didn't get a sponsor. It didn't go great, but man, we really enjoyed that person. We enjoyed working with that person because we felt like there was a shared trust and bonding there. Those people we'll have back again and again, and we'll want to work harder to make their next event successful, right? We'll want to work harder. How can we build on what we've done? And a lot of times with artists like that, I think of, okay, that first show that maybe wasn't super successful, that was an investment in the next show, because that's somebody I want to work. No, yours are always, by the way, I think you're almost sold out next week, Jose, which is great.
Woo! Yeah.
Really close. But,
maybe I got to do a little push, but no, I was being serious. It's because, guys, I have a Valentine's Day concert, and it was an idea, and I'm collaborating with these two singers, Sienna and Lisette. Anyways, so it's not jazz; it's gonna be like R&B love songs, but it's a very Valentino's Day. It's a play on my words, on my middle name. But the reason why I was doing this is because I do remember the very first collaboration we did. It was, I want to say, 2020 Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, it was so much fun. And I was like, how did we do it? And I think you said, well, we lost money, but it was still awesome. And you know, but it was cool because it's like, you know, I never heard anybody even tell me something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it never even came to my mind that there would be any loss. And I was like, wait a minute, what can I do to also help? Because I don't want to contact a friend and then for them to lose money. But he was like, no, it's okay. And he kind of explained exactly what he said, you know. And the lesson that I learned too with executive directors, like what his wife did for many years at the venue, and what he does as an artistic director, is it's the relationship, because it's the idea of building, because, you know, you want to have essentially these performing arts centers can become home away from homes, right? Homes away from home, that you can build that community, you know, and that's really why artists are able to do their tours. It's like, yeah, you know, I mean, I'm for whatever reason, I love the WWE. I know it's fake and all that stuff, but he still get injured and all that. But, you know, I love it when I've always loved it when Dwayne Johnson would say, finally, The Rock has come back to, and then name the city, because
Yeah.
it's the idea that, you know what, he's got a fan base here, fan base there. So it's the idea of building that. And I think great artistic directors and artists understand that, hey, what was good about it, and understand that no show is perfect, but what were the really great takeaways and how can you improve a situation? So
That was a pretty good Dwayne Johnson voice, by the way. That
oh.
was, but if my eyes were closed, I thought the Rock was on this Zoom, for a second. It was really,
Finally. Yeah.
yeah.
So, all right, great. You know, Hannah asked a really great question, and I maybe this is like a good piggyback to help support it, because Hannah is writing beautiful songs, and she sent me an audio, and I'm like, wow, this is really, really great. And I know that there's a lot of potential there, but you know, I don't know that her experience is where it needs to be necessarily to be booking at the Raleigh Arts Center. But I know that her songs have potential. What are some
Yeah.
things that she could be doing now to gain enough experience, trust, and self-efficacy on her end to be able to
Sure.
perform in the immediate, so that eventually, you know, when she does have that refined product and that confidence to be able to communicate with an audience, you know, that she can book a venue wherever it may be.
Yeah. And Hannah, are you performing your songs too, or mainly just writing?
So I have a couple songs on like Spotify and Apple Music and those types of platforms. I haven't performed any of them yet or anything like that, but I do like post them on like social medias as well.
Cool.
So more that kind of stuff, but never like in front of like a live audience.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that you can do as a songwriter, and I've seen this with a couple other people, are putting together like some showcase nights. So getting some, and again, like Dr. Ruiz said, like, yeah, maybe you don't want to book a 700 seat venue yet, because playing a 700 seat, even if 200 people are there, feels like no one came, right? But playing a 100 seat venue where 100 people come to feels like freaking amazing, right? So figuring out what venue, what's the right place for me at this moment in time. But I think especially for a songwriter, people are fascinating with the songwriting process. People are fascinating with the creative process, and a lot of people outside of what we do, they're creative in their own lives. They don't realize that. They don't connect that with what we do, but they're completely enamored with how something gets created from nothing, right? So I think as a creator, as a songwriter, as a content creator, I think investing in finding ways to show that off and to build your brand as a songwriter, like what makes your songs special, what makes them uniquely Hannah, and is important. I think putting together like some showcase type events where it's all your songs, but maybe you've got different artists there. So collaborating with other artists that might all have their own niche followings. And then if you can kind of bring all those, like, if every person on that show can get 5 people to come to the show, and you've got, 6 or 10 people, you're up to 30, 40, 50 people in a small room, which should be really special, but it could still be branded as the Hannah song showcase or whatever, whatever you want it to be, which is kind of exciting. But I think, as far as what can you do right now, stuff like that for sure. Play as much as you can, meet people as much as you can, work with other artists as much as you can. Songwriters sometimes tend to not do that a lot. They have their songs, they make their YouTube videos or whatever, just don't perform their own songs. But we miss that sort of connection with other artists, which really means more collaboration, more connection, more networking, and all those kind of things. By the way, I hate networking until I realized what networking was. I used to think networking was like, oh, I've got to go to this event and I've got to like write people's names down and remember them. Okay, Dr. Ruiz, he went here and I'm going to remember that. And like, no, really, networking is just hanging out with people that do what you do, right? So find places to hang out, go to other singer-songwriter showcases in town, go to open mic nights, go to all those things, spend a moment. Even if you're not a very social person, I'm very introverted, but a lot of us can be that way in this business, even though we present ourselves as differently. But go to those events, get to know people, start building your brand, not only as an artist, but as a person, being someone that people want to hang out with, talk to, work with, all those kind of things. And that all starts, by the way, with being yourself. I know you know that. You saw Aladdin when the genie tells Aladdin to be yourself. It's the same thing in the music business. Like, it's just the more we can be genuine and authentic, people tend to be drawn to that. So I would encourage you to do that. Obviously, your music's going to do that for you, but doing that too as a person. But it's hard out there. And do you? And again, I would continue to encourage you to have other artists play your music too. You know what I mean? And it was really, I think, really important to getting songs out there. And it's obviously it's more lottery tickets for you to maybe win one, right? So if someone else is playing your song, maybe they finally hit it after they've been working just like you have for so many years. And now you've got this entry into Nashville or somewhere else where more of your music is going to get played and your name's going to get bigger. So
yeah, and getting reviews and write-ups or even doing interviews on a local level is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that'll be really great, and I'm somebody that has been fortunate enough to like actually, been interviewed like by CNN, USA Today, and Rolling Stone and things like that. But it all started, it's like a segue. People started hearing about those. I started getting inquired of by those big things because I was even taking the opportunity to do some of these like more local or like they're meant for upcoming artists like Bold Journey, Voyage, Voyage Miami, Voyage LA. And I still love doing those things, every time that they call me and those, these types of local write-ups are really important. I mean, take advantage of, here in Gainesville, like the Alligator, a student and see if you can, but have your stuff ready, right? I mean, it's the idea of that's what this class is for and other classes that you take. I mean, have your website, have your social media, make sure there's brand consistency, make sure that there's like very clear consistency so that when people skim through, it's like, okay, cool, the photos are dope. And look, if you can't afford a professional photographer, get somebody with an iPhone, put it up in 4K, pick the right setting, right occasion, weather, everything, all that stuff. And, just do the best with what you have. And you'll see that opportunities will start opening up for you. Next question is from Raquel. Hello, Raquel.
Hi. I was just wondering what your thoughts and opinions are on venue split or merchandise splits for artists, whether you use them, when you think it's appropriate, what are the advantages for venues, just any thoughts you might have.
Sure. So, from being from the venue side of it, we do venue splits pretty often. We try to be really fair. I think we usually do 10% if the artist sells and 15% if the venue sells. And when we first got into this business like 8 years ago, I didn't even know about venue splits. I came at presenting as a conductor, an orchestra conductor, right? So the first time we had our venue, it was kind of like, and I remember an artist had said, "Hey, what's your merch split?" And I was like, "Hang on a second." And I Googled merch split, to like figure out what is this person talking about, And at first I was like, why would we take, money from them selling merchandise? But the reality is you're providing a storefront as a venue. You're providing an opportunity and a place for people to come together and buy a lot of that merch. I think as long as the split is fair, and by fair, I think like 10, 15% is like about as high as it should get. A lot of venues are higher than that, 25, 30, 35% and higher. I also think there's some special cases. Like we've had several artists, even pretty big ones, say, "Hey, merch split's fine on all of our t-shirts and mugs and stuff, but on our albums, can we not do a split?" And they give me like a good, because of the way that money's going to work and all that stuff. Yeah, no problem. Because we all know like selling physical CDs, records are a little bit better now, but selling physical like CDs and stuff, there's like no money to in that business between having this stuff pressed and then carting it around and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're fair. It's definitely something to think about as an artist before you get to the venue that day. So make sure it's in your contract, make sure it's sort of part of the offer and the acceptance of the offer. And then again, if you can sell, make sure that you've got I'm thinking of like things we've run into. If you're selling instead of the venue selling, make sure you've got a good accounting system to show like, yeah, here's exactly what we sold and here's the money we owe you. Most artists that we've worked with, and like by most, I mean like 98% have been no problem in that respect. And it's not a lot of money either way, usually. I mean, that's what I've seen anyways, at a lot of our shows and stuff. We're not selling near as much merch as I think people used to sell maybe 5 or 10 years ago. The stuff that does sell is usually like wearable stuff, cool t-shirts. Maybe I've seen a lot of artists, they'll bring some cool like custom or like limited print posters that are pre-signed. Those do really pretty well. Like the Wood Brothers did that a couple years ago, and those sold really well. But yeah. So I don't know. Does that answer kind of your question, or?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So next, Darius, how important is having consistent audiovisual quality and deliverables for the venues? That's a great question, Darius. And I think I can tell you when I get like an email that has a great video or great record quality, it gives me an immediate confidence that I don't have otherwise, right? So I wish I could, and it'd probably be rude to share it, but today I got an email from somebody, and I'm just trying to see if it happens to be towards the top of my lists or my email, and I think I've already deleted it, which tells you about it. So it was like from a rockabilly group, which I like rockabilly. I was kind of excited about it, and it was literally like a video that I felt like was taken with like a flip phone from the back row of a venue inside of a plastic cup. It just like sounded horrible, and I felt bad because I was like, this is a band I want to book, I think, based on like what I'm reading about them and seeing about them. But this video they sent me does not represent them very well at all. Right. So just know that when you get something, when you send something off, if they don't know you, that's all they have to judge you by. You might be an incredible artist, but you sent them something you recorded with a needle and a rock somehow. And there's no way they can book you. They're not going to book you. So right. Now, with all that said, that doesn't mean you've got to have this ultra professional done by, you've paid thousands and thousands of dollars for material. And I know you guys know this because of the class you're in, the place you're in, and the resources around you, but there are ways to record yourselves really professionally. There are ways to have websites and photography and video that's really professional looking. Like this generation that we have right now, like I think we're so much luckier than artists maybe 20 years ago, when the only way to get a studio quality album was to pay studio quality money and go somewhere and have someone else do all that for you. But you can do all that now. So I think as much as you can, learning how to do a lot of that yourself. Remember, like mother's the necessity of invention. Wait, is that right? And I always get that, but you get the wait, necessity is the mother of invention. Is that right? It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we can learn how to do a lot of that stuff ourselves, or we can look to our left or right in the Zoom, and I guarantee you that person or that person next to us knows how to do those things. So again, going back to that collaborating and being with people to get that higher quality stuff, I think it's really important. And then it's not quite what you asked there, but like I think being you said the word consistent, I think is important. Like, so don't send your second best work or your fourth best work. Just send your best work, and that'll sell yourself and be good to go. I think, Jose, anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question, because it seems like, at least for me, so much of what I submit has to be video, because I just assume that in today's age, people don't listen to an album enough. I mean, it's kind of, I think, for example, like Glenda has this incredible album that would be amazing to listen to, but I think maybe even part of her recent Grammy nomination was because of the fact that she had really compelling video footage. And it's something that I think a lot of artists have to do. So I guess I'll ask you a question. I mean, within circles of arts executives, I mean, do you feel like with so much content, it's just people, do you think anybody really takes time to listen to the record? Or do they just, is it just better to listen or, submit the video?
Man, it's kind of hard to say with like outing myself. If I get an email, and I think a lot of my colleagues feel the same way, like, and I'm talking unsolicited, right? There's a difference between somebody I know recommended this artist Darius that I need to take a look at, or gotcha. Hey, we had this girl at our venue and she's fantastic, you should check. So that's there. But when it's unsolicited, I might go to the website. I might listen if there's some tracks like listed on a website. I might listen in that way. I might check Spotify to see if they have like how many monthly followers they have or monthly listeners. But but I'm not gonna spend a lot of time doing that. If there's a video link in the email, I will click on that just because it's easier and it gives me both. I get to see what does this person present, like what is their overall presentation like, and then how do they sound like at the same time. And then also, very rarely, you talked about this yesterday with the 5 stages of consumer preference. That first one that happens within a single second or two of like, or, that happens immediately, right? So don't send someone
tolerance
something starts at the part of it, right? Like you want to, make sure you're sending them something that gives them past that first second so they can tolerate it.
Yeah.
And then the next second of what's the second stage there? Judgment, right? So then they can judge it, but they're not even going to judge it if they can't even tolerate what you send them right to begin with, right? So anyway, that's a really long answer to say that I think video content is important. If you have video, for me as a concert presenter, if you have video content that's from a live performance but still sounds good, so like if you get like a direct feed from the board to pair with whatever video you have or whatever, that's to me more valuable as a presenter than like a really highly produced like music video or something. But both of those things are intriguing to me. Like I'm gonna watch them.
Well, it's good to know, right? Because I mean, there are audiences that that their work is to curate and to listen and to talk about albums, and their job is to listen. But at the end of the day, I think what you answered, it might come across to some of you like, why wouldn't you listen to the album? But the thing is, it's like the venue that you're talking about, or that you're trying to connect with, is a performance venue, which is why, when you factor in a grant proposal, which is something that eventually you'll be, doing, especially when we talk about contracts and professional writing for opportunities, when you're going to do an album project, I mean, factor in a budget just to even get video footage to be able to make a behind the scenes making of the album, or, maybe 2 or 3 of your best songs that could be live performed, with multi-camera angle. And, again, it doesn't need to be something so crazy expensive, right? Because, the same way with audio engineering and production, I mean, the spectrum for quality can range drastically, but you can work a lot. You can really squeeze the juice out of an opportunity, even with like, just a cheaper videographer that knows that, what, they're going to care for you. That's really what's more important. So great question, Darius. And thanks for answering the follow-up. Max, you have a question?
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering, like, can you overbook yourself as an artist or a band?
Yeah, I think for sure you can. And even as depending on what fields we all go into, I mean, I can tell you as a teacher or a conductor, I can overbook myself, and I have overbooked myself. I feel a little bit of that right now, to be honest, but it happens, and I think the thing to listen for inside is, when you come away from that gig, or you come away from that class, or whatever you're doing, whatever you've been hired to do, and you sit down, like, did you really present yourself? Did you present this full self that you're capable of presenting? And when you start getting more no's to that self question than yeses, I think that means you're starting to overbook yourself too much. And it may not just be like you're booking too many gigs. We only have 24 hours in a day and one life, and we have a lot that we want to accomplish in that time. Some of it's professional, and some of it's personal and family and all the other things that we like to do. So I think really being careful with that sort of, as Dr. Reeves will say, sometimes that ebb and flow of where you're spending your time and where you're investing yourself. Just remember, like, every performance you give, every person you agree to have coffee with or talk with or whatever, you're giving part of your life essence away, right? Like, we make choices in life to spend time doing this or not this, and then all these other things. So I think it's really important to understand that. I will also say, Max, and this is maybe Dr. Reese can help sort of address this little conflict with even within myself. 15 years ago or 10 years ago, when I gave a similar talk to a group of percussionists about, career advice, the thing I told them then, I think I'm either evolving or I'm just getting old, was say yes to everything. You at first, say yes to every opportunity, every gig, every whatever it is. I don't know if life has changed or if I'm in a different place in my career, but that feels different now to where, where I don't want to say yes to everything. But I don't know if that's because I said yes to everything 15 years ago and now I can say no to a few things, or if it's just I'm evolving with what's important to me. But again, that the answer to your question truly lies within yourself of when or whether that's happening. And I want you to feel comfortable as an artist that every time you get on stage, you're giving the very best version of yourself to that audience or venue.
And to piggyback, Max, you want to say yes to everything in the earlier stage of your career so that you can have full confidence to say no, because you'll start identifying what is meaningful and what is not meaningful to you. So you need to know what actually sucks over time and what is actually really good, which is why, I mean, this is perfect. Why last week I was like, guys, get to learn the frameworks that I'm teaching you so that I can teach you even bigger stuff. But like, what was the 10 factors for professional opportunity consideration? You have to have a framework for what you don't like and what's not working for you so that you can at least make effective decisions so that when an opportunity presents itself, you can consider whether the task is meaningful, the money, the hang, portfolio, connections, the learning experience you're going to get, the service, and you can make that executive decision whether you pursue it depending on the non-negotiables, which is time, health, and your non-career satisfaction. You said something very, very powerful, Matt, and I think us as young entrepreneurs, we don't think enough about this, which is when do we want to hang our coat? And I love learning from people who are seasoned veterans. I got a text message from Jim Walker, the legendary flutist, former principal of LA Philharmonic, more than 700 films recording, TV and movies, Aladdin, Titanic, all of these films. And he texted me and he says, "Hey, do you want any of my sheet music?" He says, "Do you want any of my sheet music? Because I'm getting rid of everything. It's time for me to stop playing so many performances. And at this point, I just want to have fun," because he's already accomplished everything. He's received lifetime achievement. He's done so much, traveled the whole world multiple times over. At a certain point, he doesn't need to keep it up. His legacy is his legacy, right? And I get, get the opportunity to chat with legends at times, and I noticed that they are saying no to more things because it's all about that quality of life. And so even if you're 20 years old, I mean, the question that you really want to ask yourself is, do you want to hustle? Right? Hustle is fun, by the way. I love hustling, but hustle is a certain type of work and adrenaline and stress that keeps us on edge and even expressing our creative ingenuity. But the question is, do we want to hustle by the time we're 60 or 70 or 80? I think at that point, we have to kind of realize how much do we want to hustle maybe within the next 3 to 5 years, so that now we can get into that boat of business continuity, scalability, and leverage, right? And then ride that boat and then hustle from time to time, get out or say, all right, now it's time to go fishing. But at least you're on the boat on a continuous flow of opportunity and stream and things like that. Let me also add, as you start realizing that your demand becomes more, because you're having a great product and people are loving what you're doing, and over time it's like, okay, now you're getting a lot of opportunities, whether it's to perform or whether it's being that booking agent, being that event planner. I know everybody here has different expertise. That's why it's also important for you to invest in others. And one of the values that I mentioned in that 10 professional opportunity considerations is learning, is because learning will eventually become teaching. And you want to be able to kind of replicate the quality of services and duplicate the quality of services. I'm not saying go Hollywood and start cloning other no, I'm just kidding. You get what I'm saying. It's not about cloning yourself, but it's about duplicating, that and maintaining quality services and being able to delegate tasks with other people. It's like the reason why, Darius was willing to like continue learning, and it got to the point where I delegate some album productions with him, and I have full confidence that he's going to be able to maintain a standard when it comes to arranging songs and things like that. And I can say yes to this client because I know that by the time I touch that project, I'm not going to be so stressed because the task has been delegated effectively, right? So just consider that. So great question, Max. All right. Another question. Oh, we don't have any questions. I'll ask a question that I think is actually very important. Performing arts centers, they have a mission statement, and a big facet of their mission statement is to oftentimes enrich the community.
Mhm.
And there are audiences and demographics that oftentimes are not being reached.
Mhm.
And I mean, and I think, for example, you mentioned the importance of like Bela Fleck and as an example, but the importance of an artist maintaining malleability, being versatile in their offerings. Maybe touch on how an artist could maybe approach an opportunity to an art center with a proposal that has the propensity to reach demographics that haven't been addressed yet.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and if it's okay, I'll answer it from two different points of view, right? So first, let me answer from a presenter standpoint of if you find yourself working with a venue or running a venue or whatever, how to address that issue, because it's a problem I think in a lot of performing arts venues in different locations with different populations, right? So the first thing to do is like wherever you are, like know where you live and know who's around you and know who's there. Like, Jose, you had mentioned yesterday that Holyoke is like literally the largest per capita Puerto Rican population in the country, which is crazy. A lot of our students at the college here don't know that because they live in a little bit of a bubble, but there's actually an incredible Puerto Rican community around us, and tons of great restaurants, by the way. The next time you come visit, like you got to try some stuff. But anyways, that's a whole nother. But so knowing that for your particular community, I think as an art center is really important. The second way to combat this isn't just like, oh, we don't have enough like Latin, Latina people at our concerts, so let's just have like a merengue concert or something that will bring in that crowd. It doesn't quite work that way. You've got to work hard to build the trust with the communities you want to serve. There's a reason they haven't come to your venue in a long time, and so we've got to address that. That starts with having leadership in your organization and on your staff that mirror that community. So like, for instance, at the Riley, about 8 or 9 years ago, right when we were about to open the venue, we kind of realized like our board, which was just the Ocala Symphony Orchestra at the board at the time, was pretty not diverse, right? We had a lot of folks that were 65 plus, mainly men, mainly white, right? Like it was just, that was our board at the time. The cool thing is if you go look at our board now, it's extremely diverse. We've worked on that, not just to check boxes, but literally because we've realized how much that's like improved our presentation to the community, right? So the things that we're able to provide, and we're still not, this is work that never ends, by the way, because once you think you've got it, something else will change, or you realize, oh, I've left someone else in the dark a little bit. I need to help address that or whatever. So I think that's really important as you manage a venue. Just make sure that people that are the decision makers come from a diverse at least a diverse background of thought and opportunity, so that you're kind of getting all angles. On the artist side, I think it's really easy to look at a venue and say, man, I don't think this venue is doing enough for the Black community. I don't think this venue is doing enough for this community or that community. And say, hey, I want to present a show to address this void that I think you have in your programming. That's step one. Step two is, here's how I'm going to help get that population to your venue. Here's the connections I have within the community that clearly you don't have, because you're not inviting them to you, you're not getting them to your shows. So here's how I'm going to help you. So I think as an artist, if we can do that, if we can say, I'm going to help you diversify your audience by doing X, Y, and Z. I'm working with this community group that's invested in this part of the community that you want to reach. My previous shows have these folks that are part of my network that are going to help get folks to this show. I think that's really attractive, especially for the venue, because I promise you, well, I'm sure there's like some really terrible venues, but all venues want their audiences to include their entire community. I mean, that's something that we all want. So I think a lot of times it's because they may not have that leadership that's diverse. They may not have those folks that are thinking in that way already on staff. So as an artist, if you can come in and help that, then do it, And I think presenting that as part of that proposal is really important. Going beyond just saying, I'm going to get this community in. It's, how are you going to do that? And it builds that confidence and trust. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, for sure. Because the thing is, we have artists whose music might be influenced or might represent a demographic culturally or like ethnicity, ethnically, that, you could target. And I think it's also, I wrote there, I said, venues are essentially cultural architects and artists are builders. An architect is not necessarily a builder.
Right.
Now, of course, I know you guys do the most that you can to actually build it, but
Right.
I mean, the business is based on a framework that is largely, it's ink and paper, it's written out, but then you have the personnel, the production personnel, which is why it's important for you to be nice to the people when you have a performance opportunity, because they are the builders for the day of, but as an artist, you are there to connect and to reach out. So your marketing campaign, it's like, hey, listen, it could be as simple as a promo video. I know I did a promo video for Riley Arts Center for the Valentine's Day concert. I should probably do one maybe tomorrow and do it in Spanish. I didn't even think about that, because like, hey, then maybe they decide to put in like $30 and target market specifically locally, to boost the post to the Spanish audiences. And then it's like, I can say something heartfelt about like, I want my Latin community, or I want this community. And it doesn't have to be ethnically driven. I mean, it could be based on, a generation or viewpoints, it could be a whole bunch of things as to why it's important. And then, try to attract like-minded people to be able to come. So, the idea is they are cultural architects and you guys are artists, are builders. So,
and that idea that you just mentioned about, like say you speak Spanish and you can produce a video like that. That's a distinctive competency that you have as an artist that venue clearly doesn't have, right? Or they may not understand. So like anything you can bring in that respect is huge. I see the acts that target generational things like children of the 60s or those kind of things, they do this really well. I don't know that culturally and ethnically that we do it as well. Like that's the thing I'm noticing. Like, you just kind of have this expectation, like here comes a Latin artist. So clearly the Latinx community is going to come to this event, right? But no, why would they? The venue's only marketing to the same audience they always market to, right? So like how would that community even know about it, right? And that's the thing that I think venues, they're getting better, and it's definitely something. Obviously, we've been thinking a lot about this since 2020 and before, but it's something that's changing. But I think it's like you said, the artists can be the builders here and really help this. And venues will, even if they don't think that's what they need, they'll see the bottom line that, oh, wow, this concert that we just had, 40% of the audience, this was their first time in this venue. That's huge. Usually a concert that we do, maybe 5% of the audience, it's their first time in the venue, right? So anything you can do to bring a new audience in, the same way in politics, right? It's the same reason politicians are always targeting demographics and stuff, because if they can bring in new voters, boy, that's fresh blood, right? So it's the same way for the venues. If we can bring in new people, it's better for the venue's bottom line. It's also better for the venue's long-term sustainability in that community. So
Yeah. Well, are there any other questions? Kelly, you have a question?
Yes, I did want to ask something regarding what you just said. So also thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. So I was wondering regarding that whole demographic aspect. So you have a set demographic that usually, you know, those are 95% of people that come in are that demographic. So let's say you would have an artist that wants to target or, you know, that would help you target another specific community. How would you, I guess, approach, so like how would you market that also to your usual audience? So how do you help them not shy away from, you know, this performance is for this community, but it's also it's for all of us, not to replace this audience with this other audience, you know?
No, that's a great question. I think so we've faced this a couple of times, like, and I'll just say, like, for us as a venue, and I think for most venues, they have a target, you know, like this demographic's the one that's usually here. It's different for the types of shows, like the demographic that comes to like our Ocala Symphony performances, obviously is a little different than the demographic that comes to like 80s tribute bands or whatever, right? So like, know that the venues do have these sort of segmented groups, you know, or people that come to their concerts, or whoever comes to an orchestra concert may not go to a country western concert, those kind of things. But the one thing, like, for instance, we did a couple of years ago, I produced a program called Bowie and Glass, and it was music of David Bowie with the music of Philip Glass, because Philip Glass wrote a couple of symphonies inspired by David Bowie and Brian Eno. And so I had this grand concept that I wanted to bring together this rock audience that loves David Bowie, but that's very different than our typical orchestra audience. And what we found the first couple of times, and I've done that a few places around the state, the first couple of times of those performances, we really, the rock audience was willing to come. The symphony audience was less willing to come, right? They were just, you know, just knowing those two demographics. So I worked really hard in promoting that show and getting that off the ground over the last few years, of really emphasizing to that symphony crowd that Philip Glass was, who's he's a little, you know, even though he's almost 90 now, 80, but he's still a little too modern for some symphony people too, but letting him know that here's this symphonic composer that's actually was really inspired by David Bowie. Like, and actually he wrote these 3 symphonies, and that's why we're doing this and all that kind of stuff. So finding a connection between that core audience, that, you know, that symphony audience, and this quote new audience in the rock audience. So I think anytime you come in to present something new, and I do this all the time with the orchestra, even if I'm just doing a piece by a composer they don't know, or a piece by a composer they know, but they've never heard this piece before, which they exist. I really try to make them comfortable with that and explaining why this piece is important to me, like why I want to present it as a music director or conductor, and why our orchestra is excited to play it. So I think as an artist coming in, not only appealing to maybe your specific target core audience, but knowing that core audience of the venue, where's the bridge between your music and where we think maybe that core audience is. And that's where like a venue and an artist can really work well together. Like, you know, when we talk to a new artist that's coming in, they might ask like, hey, what's your percentage of ticket sales for this type of show, for the over 55 group, the 35 to 50 group, the whatever, the 17 to 34. What's that? And we'll give them all that information. And then that helps them craft their messaging to kind of not appeal or change themselves, but again, hold out that olive branch of trust, because that's all a ticket sale is trust. It's an audience member saying, I'm going to give you this money because I trust that you're going to give me an experience that elevates my quality of life, right? So that trust, and anytime we can build that directly between an artist and audience, that's the best case scenario for sales and for the success of that show. So I think knowing who you are as an artist, knowing your distinctive competencies, the things that you bring that are different than what other people bring, and then knowing how to align those with the group that you're targeting, I think is really important.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you.
So super cool, super cool. All right. Any other questions? Glenda, are you itching for another question?
Sorry, no, everything's
Cool,
great.
cool. I just look
So,
at faces and
thank
I'm
you
like,
for
all right.
having-
Yeah,
Thank you for all that information. It's really gold.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. This has been awesome. Very fun.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I mean, thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Matt. It's been exceptional. I think we can all give ourselves give you an awkward clap again, and
Thank
you know, some emojis and things like that. I think it's very powerful. I have I have one idea that will result into 3 things, because it's recorded. I'm gonna go ahead and get the transcription, and I'm gonna talk to you about co-authoring 3 articles, because I think there are 3 subject matters that could be submitted to different publications that I know would love this, and that'll add to your thing. And I like to
That'd be
write.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and we can make that available too for everybody as well. So
Cool.
awesome. Well, thank you everybody for another installment, and thank you for this class. You know, the subject today, I called it Business Acumen, Producing Compelling Concert Proposals for Performing Arts Centers. So how can people stay connected to you and you know, follow you as an artist and things like that?
Yeah, so I'll throw my website and my email address into the chat real quick. Those are probably the best ways to reach me right now. Yeah, and truly, I mean, it's for myself. If there's anything I can do, any questions I can answer or help you on your journey or connect you with anyone, please reach out. Don't be afraid to do that. And that goes for everyone else too. Never be afraid to approach people that you want to connect with. That's something I learned from my wife, who's really good at that. And even as an introverted person, I'm starting to see the validity in that. And then also I'll say with having Dr. Ruiz there as your teacher, and you've got a super opportunity to get some value from someone who has a lot to give. So take advantage of that while you're there, while you're in this class, while you're at UF, and for all the faculty there at UF, dig in and don't be afraid to ask questions and get help, because they all want to help you and see you be successful. So
Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
Cool.
have a great evening. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. See you.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
You got it.